Hi, sir. Do you hear me?
Yes. I just have to get rid of my email because it's gonna ring each time I get a message.
Okay. So if you don't mind, I'd like to start with my introduction, if it's okay with you. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So dear students, parents and colleagues, good afternoon. My name is Angela Luca and I'm Kültür2000 Koleji International Baccalaureate Diploma Program Coordinator. I'm very pleased to welcome you all today to Culture Nobel Talks live streaming. The current COVID pandemic outbreak has brought undeniable challenges in our lives, and now more than ever we appreciate and understand the importance of doing research. In order to ensure education continuity for our students and to improve their awareness of global issues, today we will be honored by the presence of Professor Joachim Frank, a German-born American biophysicist and Nobel laureate. Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to Nobel Talks live streaming.
Hello.
How do you do?
Good, thank you. Great day here.
I had the pleasure to interview you in person with our students in Stockholm in December 2017, and also watch you receive your prize from the King of Sweden at the Nobel Prize Award ceremony. So first of all, in the name of Istanbul Culture University, Istanbul Culture Education Institutions, I would like to express once again our sincere gratitude for the great opportunity that is being given to us today. Thank you so much for being here again. I would like to add a few details about your discovery for the students who are listening to us. Professor Frank is regarded as the founder of single particle cryoelectron microscopy, for which he shared the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2017 with Jacques Dubochet and Richard Anderson with the following prize motivation: for developing cryoelectron microscopy for the high resolution structure determination of biomolecules in solution. So, sir, I have a little curiosity, if I may ask. How has life been since you were awarded the Nobel Prize?
Well, very interesting, more interesting than before, certainly. And I had lots of opportunities to travel. And obviously, there was a lot of flattering talk. And so I felt great at the end of this career.
And okay, that's very interesting. And how did you celebrate the announcement, if I may ask?
Oh, we celebrated in so many ways. We celebrated with a group. We celebrated it with with two different departments of the university. The entire medical school celebrated it. They had big banners outside of the university, which made this as a big announcement. Yeah, we celebrated it in at the place where I worked before, at the Wadsworth Center in Albany, where I was till 2008. They invited me back, and it was a very big celebration with all the different co-workers from the time, and the Commissioner of Health.
What
of
a great accomplishment, right? For having spent your life, studying and searching for a topic. I think it's the greatest, really, accomplishment that a person who studies and works for science and research can achieve.
Yeah, that's what happened, that you work in relative obscurity and all of a sudden there comes this limelight and you're not used to it and you have to grow into it.
You're a famous person now. Everybody knows you, right?
Yeah.
I can assure you that Turkey knows you very well. We all know you very well. Thank you very much again for being here. So as I already told you, Kültür and Kültür2000 College high school students have made some research. They have prepared some interesting questions about your discovery, and they would appreciate the opportunity to listen to your answers. So we're going to listen to their questions one by one, and we will start with question number one, prepared by Oğuzkan. Let's listen to what he says.
Hello, my name is Oğuzkan Ataç. I'm a junior student in Culture Science High School. Today, I'd like to ask you a question about your research on cryoelectronic microscopy. Now, it has been about 3 years since you won the Nobel Prize. Has the cryoelectronic microscopy usage become widespread in this process? In other words, is it being used more widespread and effectively in research? Thank you very much for enlightening us.
Okay. So this is it's an interesting question. You know, what normally happens is that you know, a field progresses and all kinds of wonderful things are happening, but the world doesn't know about it. And it often happens that the Nobel Prize all of a sudden puts the limelight on something, and then all the world all of a sudden looks at it and then sees the new opportunities. So it's really a very big switch. And so the entire field was boosted by it, and many people who are working in this with this technology all of a sudden felt themselves being boosted in recognition, and so it has affected the entire field in a major way. So one is that it's the you know, people became aware of the capabilities of cryo-EM, and they didn't know about this before. And the second thing that happened was that colleges, universities thought it would be a good idea to invest. And so there were many orders of these expensive instruments. There were grant applications to grant agencies. The grant agencies themselves, NIH, NSF, and so forth, they thought, yeah, wait a moment, this is really an, you know, fantastic technique, and we should invest in it. So there has been this overall ripple effect everywhere. So it's really been a common effect. It didn't just affect the research in my own group, but it was worldwide. And many of these microscopes have been sold. The high-end microscopes that are cost, you know, over $5.5 million. Yeah. They are, you know, the Saudi Arabia ordered 8.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Put them in the desert, yeah.
That's really interesting.
And there are many in China, and Manhattan now has the biggest number of microscopes in the world.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear. Thanks. Okay, thank you so much. And now we have question number 2 prepared by one of our students called Denise. So question number 2, here it comes.
Hi, I'm Denise Karabay, and I'm an 11th grader from Computer Science High School. And what I wanted to ask you today was, compared to former techniques, what has your 3D imaging technique enabled us to see and understand in terms of molecules? Thank you for your time.
There are 2 things to say. One is that the technique that has been useful and has been appreciated for decades was X-ray crystallography. That gave us the knowledge of atomic structures of many molecules. And in fact, to date, there are 140,000 structures deposited in the public database. So the whole molecular medicine would be unthinkable without that knowledge.
Oh,
but there is a huge gap in this database, which is about molecules that could not be crystallized. So there are many receptors, ion channels, large structures that have flexibility and so forth that could not be explored at all. So cryo-electron microscopy, the single particle cryo-electron microscopy, made it possible all of a sudden to obtain structures for those molecules as well. And it was a gradual development, and it it did not get to atomic resolution until 2012. In 2012, very important new cameras were developed, and that all of a sudden switched the entire field into a different kind of mode of productivity. And since 2012, there have been fantastic number of near atomic structures that have been solved by this technique. Now, number two is that for any molecule, cryoelectron microscopy brings in the dimension of the dynamics. What we really want to know is not just the structure, but the way molecules change their structure as they interact with other molecules. And this knowledge really doesn't come from X-ray crystallography. So even for molecules that have been solved by X-ray crystallography, there's still a knowledge gap that can now be filled by cryoelectron microscopy, because one can characterize all the different conformational states of the molecule in an actual situation in which it interacts with other molecules.
Thank you very much for your reply. Now we're ready to listen to question number 3, prepared by our high school student.
Hi, I'm Dilazenet, and I'm a 10th grade student from Kültür Koleji. Today I will ask you some questions about your new research. My question is, when it comes to the development of the cryoelectron microscope, it's described as freezing the picture of life. Based on this, what kind of change can be occurred in the chemistry of our lives with this information?
Okay. I'm trying to understand your question. Freezing the picture of life is really a metaphor. Okay, that somebody used, somebody who was very inventive as a journalist.
Okay, I see. Sometimes.
What does it mean? It doesn't mean that we are going to be frozen. It simply means that the molecules are the essence of life functions. And so freezing the molecules means that you need to freeze them in order to get or to visualize them at high resolution. There's unfortunately no technique that gives us a direct movie of the molecules as they move and interact with other molecules. So it is essential that they're freezing, that they're being frozen, and so the second part of the question, I don't know what to do with it. Based on this, what kind of changes can happen in our lives with this invention? I hope our lives will not be frozen, okay?
Maybe some of students want to live forever. You never know. We don't know that. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your reply. So now we're ready for question number 4, prepared by a student.
Hello, my name is Melis Matban, and I'm a 10th grade student from Kültür Koleji. Today, I have some questions about your new research. So far, inactive cells have been observed by electron microscopes. So, what was the fact or that led you to analyze the biomolecules? I mean the molecules in living things.
So, what happened was really, let me rephrase the question. I understand the question is that up to a certain point, which was really back a number of decades, electron microscopy was only used to look at whole cells and the tissues and so forth. And then came the point where some people like I put the focus on molecules. Okay, so I was not the only one. There were a number of people who then looked with the electron microscope at molecules. So, and the question is, why would we do that? Well, it's a challenge. We know that the electron microscopy can give us very high resolution. From the wavelength alone, we would even expect resolution of 0.04 angstroms, okay, but which can never be attained because of lens operations. So, but one could expect from an electron microscope, I could expect a resolution of 1 angstroms. So then the question is, why has the electron microscope never been used to look at molecules? Well, there are whole lots of there are lots of explanation. It was very difficult to get molecules prepared, as single objects, and actually look at them. And then it turns out that when you look at molecules with a microscope, you don't see very much. You don't get contrast. So in order to contrast, you need to know to use some kind of a stain. So people used a stain, but the stain is not good because it sort of produces artifacts and it squashes them in the molecule. And what is more, the electrons themselves destroy the molecules in the process of imaging. So one needs to get a very low dose. But with low dose, one doesn't see the molecule very, very clearly. One gets sort of a salt and pepper effect. So there had to be a lot of techniques to be developed in order to actually look at molecules. But the reason why I and other people looked at molecules was simply we knew that the instrument itself has a great potential. It has a great potential, and the potential was essentially wasted by looking at something very low resolution like tissues and cells.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you very much. If you want to add something, please, we still have time. Okay, so we have now question number 5.
Hello, my name is Murat Hangüler and I'm a 10th grader in Kültür2000 High School. So, as you know, we are struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic. That's why we would like to ask your opinion about what benefits can cryoelectronic microscopes can provide us in order to develop a medicine for this current COVID-19 virus and other viruses that can cause a pandemic in the future. Thank you.
Yes. Viruses were actually some of the first objects that cryoelectron microscopy was used for to look at it at very high resolution. And what is the only thing maybe that is nice about viruses is that they have high symmetry, very high symmetry, 60-fold symmetry, which means that you can do an excessive amount of averaging and you get a boost in resolution. So viruses have actually been imaged at near atomic resolution even before these cameras came out, okay? Just because of the effect of the symmetry. Now the Zika virus is one of the more recent viruses. It was solved by Michael Rossmann. And this is an example where the knowledge of the structure gave us hints on how to develop effective antibodies. So in the case of the coronavirus, the same is true. By looking at the structure of the spike protein, there's a spike protein which is instrumental for the virus to enter the human host because it interacts with the receptor. So it's some kind of a lock and key mechanism. And to understand how this spike protein works, and in fact, it sort of has some kind of an, conformational changes in which it tries to get entry. So by knowing this mechanism, one could perhaps develop an effective cure These could be antibodies, there could be all kinds of molecules that intervene with these conformational changes. And in fact, in my own lab, we are now looking at a very large data set that was created somewhere else by someone who worked on this in Austin, Texas, and who published a paper in Science. His name is McLellan. And so he gave us a very large data set to look at, to study these conformational changes with a computer, because we have special programs that are specialized in looking at conformational changes and draw conclusions from that.
And what sort of progress do you think is being made, and when do you think we're going to have a coronavirus vaccine? I mean, what is your opinion about this? Can we say that?
I'm really not a specialist. I can read the internet as you.
Okay. Yes.
I follow the progress of everything that's going on Twitter and the New York Times and so forth. And so there have been lots of announcements, and obviously many companies are now in a rush to focus on this. But we know that the development of vaccines is not just a problem of biochemistry and genetics. It is something that involves human testing, and it involves, as we just now learned, ethical questions. You know, could we set aside a volunteer group to get tested in order to accelerate the entire testing of vaccine? You know, is this ethical? You know,
I've heard that there have been actually some clinical trials somewhere, that there are 80 groups in the world who are trying to research, you know, about how to find a vaccine. But mine was just a curiosity, of course. We were just wondering.
Yeah, again, I really have no special comments about this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Now our last question number 6, prepared by our student.
Hello, my name is Yağmur Ece Bektaş. I'm a student at Kültür2000 Anatolian High School studying IBDP. Today I want to ask you some questions. After I did some research on the internet, I have learned that cryo-EMs, cryoelectron microscopes, cost about $7 million without its operational costs, just like computers when they were first invented. I wonder whether it will be possible to use cryo-EMs in biochemistry laboratories at a more affordable price in the near future. Is there any research about it? Thank you.
Yes, that's an excellent question. And because cryo-EM has sort of spread out like a wildfire, and so many groups try to get their hands on it, and it is very difficult to get hold of this kind of amount of money. There's no grant agency that gives you this kind of money for instruments, and so only very large institutions like Columbia University and so forth have been able to essentially put together packages and get donors interested and so forth. So, but by the way, the comparison with the computer is of course interesting, but it's not quite the same situation, because in computers it was possible to miniaturize hardware in many generations, and something like this is impossible in electron microscopy, because there is simply the basics of the electron path and to accelerate it, the vacuum and the magnetic lenses and so forth. They cannot be miniaturized. They cannot be made small and really affordable. But at least there is some scaling that can be done. essentially the gospel in the field has been for a long time that a microscope to be effective needs to be 300 kilovolts. And 300 kilovolts means that the dimensioning of the magnetic lenses and high voltage and all this has to be a certain size. Okay, and but lately people have been discussing lower voltages, whether they can also be effective, and the focus is now on 100 kilovolt microscope. They're smaller because the magnetic lenses can be smaller and so forth. So it's
more affordable.
Yeah, it turns out that this is still an instrument that can do most of this stuff that the 300 kV instruments can do, and they become more affordable. They go more into the range of maybe 2 million, maybe 1.5. I don't know. One thing that has not happened is an effective competition in the field, because for various historical reasons, one single company has sort of gone into the far field and left all the competition behind. And it could be that the lower voltages provide a platform for more competition. And then we will see the prices fall and get into a more reasonable range.
I see. Thank you so much. So we're done with our questions. And once again, I sincerely thank you for joining us at Culture Nobel Talks. It was an honor for me personally, but for all our students and our colleagues and parents to have you in attendance. And I would also like to thank our students who attended today. And I hope that you find this event interesting and informative. And we're going to see you very soon. If you don't mind now, we would like to take a picture with you now that we are here waiting all together with all the participants, if possible. Okay, I think we are perfectly on time. Okay, so I'm very happy that we started perfectly on time and we have continued this way. And who knows, maybe we're going to meet again one day. This is the second time, you never know, right?
Right.
I read that. Yeah, excuse me.
It was a great pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.